Stacey, Debbie, thank you so much for joining me today for this conversation. We're going to talk about social media and screens and the damages that those two things are having on students in our school and students across the nation. It's great to have you both here because there's a wealth of experience and knowledge. I mean, Stacey, you're here with years of experience as a counselor and curriculum development and classroom teacher with a PhD and more credentials than I can count. And Debbie, you've been teaching since before I was born. And so your experience and leadership in the educational movement is beyond what most can even comprehend. So I kind of want to start with prefacing our conversation with a little bit about what I've seen. As a school psychologist, I've tested hundreds of students, worked with thousands of students over the years, and what I'm starting to see is that these screens and social media that our students and students across our country are engaging in are having major adverse effects that are touching all aspects of their lives. Is that accurate to what both of you are saying? Is that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm seeing that these screens are affecting kids' ability to sleep, and sleep affects your ability to learn and your ability to function all day. And screens are affecting your students' anxiety and depression. We're seeing increases in students who are trying to commit suicide, and all of these terrible, tragic kind of things related to these devices that kids have in their pocket or in their backpack or that they're carrying around. One of the things I want to do before we really get into it, because I have some questions for you both, is that there's two different things we're talking about here. One is social media, and that is something within the screen. And then there's the physical device, right? So the physical device, these phones, they emit light, and they have games on them, and they have email, all kinds of stuff. Some of which what they have on them is social media. The physical device, having an actual screen or an iPad or whatever, the biggest drawback I see of those is that often students are given unfettered access to those, and specifically at nighttime. We have kids who are sent to their bed and they're watching videos or YouTube or whatever until 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, even 1 o'clock in some experiences, some times that I've heard, and these kids aren't sleeping. And it's causing major effects across the board. The other aspect is this social media thing where we have these companies that have spent billions of dollars to get kids addicted to social media. So those are the kind of two things we want to talk about today. Starting with Debbie. Debbie, what have you seen in your years of education? You started teaching a long time ago. Today we're at this place where we've got these devices in our pocket that effectively could have launched the space shuttle 30 years ago with how much tech is in it. What are the bad effects of those devices that kids are carrying around?
The biggest thing to me that's happened is it's a loss of childhood. Kids have lost being children. I mean, social media has launched them into being impacted by things that are completely not for kids. And so you're seeing kids being addicted to these things and knowing things that are way beyond their years, knowing about things they should know about, being exposed to things that they shouldn't be exposed to. They don't have the mental maturity or the mental capacity to understand or interpret what they're seeing. And so they're being exposed to a whole array of things that they don't have the ability to interpret. And it's left for their own imagination or some bigger person to interpret it for them.
Right.
That's including things that are sexual in nature, including things that are mechanical in nature, including things dietary. I mean, just the whole gamut of things. It's causing they've lost being children.
That's crazy. What is, we had this conversation as a staff at the beginning of the year where we talked about refining as a school, right? And this year we talked about refining in the aspect that it is our job as a filter to refine the garbage that's coming through water, right? Like filtering water. It's our job to filter out the nonsense so that these kids we can protect their innocence. What is the value of the innocence of children? Why should that be protected? Why is that important?
Well, on several levels, it should be protected because developmentally, there are just certain things that kids developmentally should be exposed to or that they have the ability to interpret or understand. And it's important for us as their caretakers during the day to protect that piece of it. Bigger than that, I think parents' role have been hijacked because thinking that this is every kid wants the latest toy. And so with very little understanding. Lots of parents are just like, everybody's got one, my kid's got to have one, and not understanding that you've just kind of invited a dragon into your home and you don't know how to train it.
Right.
And so this kid just has all this access to information and knowledge and facts and not facts and truth or not truth.
Right.
And parents think they're doing a good thing because their kid's getting the latest toy, but really it's exposing them to a whole gamut of things that kids shouldn't be exposed to, and parents aren't prepared to protect them from right now.
Right. It's a great bouncing point, Stacey. I mean, you've run our counseling department. We have 3 or 4 counselors at this point in time. You kind of started our official counseling department. You've also been an educator since I was in high school, at least, because I remember you.
Yes.
What have you seen? What are the dangers of social media and screens that you've seen over the years?
Well, I agree with Debbie in that the kids just not being kids anymore. They're just so focused on finding out, who's texted me, who's liked me, things like that. But even more so, I just have seen a huge increase in the kids with anxiety and depression coming in. And just they're not getting sleep. They're talking to people they shouldn't be talking to.
Yeah.
They're connecting with people they shouldn't be connecting with. They have, they're posting pictures that they shouldn't be posting, things like that, just near a young age. And then once it gets out there, they're horrified because, of course, somebody said that they weren't going to share it with anybody, and then it gets out. So it becomes a whole nother layer of issues. And so I think that those kinds of things, just keep increasing.
Right.
The way that kids have more access to to phones, younger and younger. So we used to see it just with high school students and then middle school, and now elementary kids are even having some of these issues.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many things I've been in where I see a parent just giving their little 3-year-old or 5-year-old a phone to keep them quiet.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's easy.
It's
And
easy,
in defense of, I have a young child myself,
Yes.
right? We've all been parents here. That's one of the things that we have in common with every one of the parents who send their kids to our schools, that we are also parents.
Yes.
And sometimes you're overwhelmed. Being a parent's hard, and being at the restaurant and trying to eat dinner,
Your kid's
it's easier.
screaming
It's
and
easier to grab
yes.
the device
Totally.
and just be like,
Here you go.
we want to have adult conversation.
Yes.
However,
Exactly.
It was an interesting thing last week at the high school. We were talking, and they were talking about this use of low tech. And one of the things that one of the teachers said, that one of the things that they had done in class was play football. They were so surprised at how many high school kids didn't know how to fold a paper into a football and play that football game, which is what used to
little one
happen
like
at every
this.
restaurant when you were having dinner with your mom and dad, and you played that football game. And he said, I was just shocked that the majority of my kids in my classroom didn't know how to fold a piece of paper to make a football, to play that football game.
But stuff like that, we need to get back to that. One of the things that, so you mentioned that kids get onto social media and they're going for likes. That brings up something that is very close to my heart, and that's something that I've brought up a couple times. Dopamine. Dopamine is a drug, it's something that your brain releases naturally, and it's important, that makes you kind of feel pleasure, right? Our dopamine response to things like social media and getting likes. We all have social media accounts. I post pictures of my grass this week because I planted grass in my backyard for my daughter so we can have a soccer field. Very proud of the fact that the grass is growing. But I posted pictures on my social media. When my friends like it, it makes me feel good. It's like, ha, they like my grass. That is something that's kind of natural. However, when our kids post pictures of themselves or what they're doing and they get likes from their friends, they're getting that dopamine response. The problem is, our brains, the way our brains are wired, is that it will look for the shortest distance between here and dopamine and feeling good. That's how we operate as human beings. And there's a dirty secret about dopamine, that it's the same thing that we get when we drink alcohol, or when we gamble, or when we smoke cigarettes, or when we do a gamut of the terrible, gross things that human beings do because they're addicted. Addiction effectively is created by a desire for a dopamine response. And most things that are most addictive are super easy to access, or at least they're a quick dopamine response. The problem is the things that are healthy for us and give us a dopamine response typically are kind of hard to get a hold of. Running a mile And getting a dopamine response from that energy exertion is a lot harder than reaching in the cupboard for a bottle of whiskey, to be honest. Running a mile is a lot harder than opening up social media, leaning back on the couch, and swiping and flipping and looking for likes. And so when given the choice, as an immature 13-year-old, 12-year-old, 18-year-old, I mean, we can go 22-year-old, adult, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, when those kids are handed a phone and they're given the choice of doing something that's kind of difficult for a dopamine response, or let me sit here and flip, or play a video game, because those companies spend billions of dollars on the same thing, they're going to go to the phone every time, which is removing them from the healthy environment, the healthy things that they need to do. These kids aren't playing outside anymore. Kids aren't making friends with each other anymore. They're addicted to these phones in the same way that adults get addicted to drugs, alcohol, gambling, and you name it.
At this point, what I've found is that parents aren't even equipped with knowing what to do with their kids.
Yeah.
Other than that. I mean, I've met with families over the last 3 weeks, a variety of different parents. And when I say to them, we need to put this away, and I say, does your little boy, do they play outside? Oh, no, we don't let them outside. Do they ride a bicycle? Oh, no. I said, get the kid out. This boy needs to be outside. Right. He needs to be running till he sweats. He needs to be on a bicycle falling off. He needs to be digging in dirt. They were completely unaware.
Right.
Because they were keeping him safe. Right. Because safety has become a bigger issue for parents.
Yeah.
With all the things going on in the world, he was safe. They're not letting him outside because there's weird people out there. And it was, as I was talking to these parents, I realized they were completely unequipped to parent at this point. Now they have a 5-year-old. It's a totally different thing. And this little boy now, we're dealing with 5 years of him pretty much being raised by a phone YouTube. And a variety of family members who all, what they said to me was, Mrs. Beyer, this is very hard because everybody has this. We can't leave them anywhere because everywhere they go, everybody has this. If they don't have access, everybody else does.
Yeah.
And my response then, find some new people.
Yeah.
Because there are parents who don't want their kids to be exposed to this.
This is a great jumping point to our next topic. So what does this look? I mean, we can identify the problems for the next 6 hours.
Yeah.
What does it look like when it's done right? What does this look like when it's done right?
Well, I think I heard a quote from an officer just recently. I would never allow a kid to have a phone, especially unsupervised, until you're ready to have some very frank and graphic conversations with them. And it just made me stop and think, what a great way to put it.
Yeah.
That's very true. Because even 6-year-olds, if they're on a gaming platform, not even a cell phone, a gaming platform, or they're on the computer playing a game, if those chat kind of features and stuff are not turned off, and they have ways of being able to go around, even at 7, 8 years old, they find out how to go back in and change it. Yeah. Then predators have access to your kids, and kids are sending pictures to people that they shouldn't be sending pictures to, and things like that. Just this is how big this is getting. Yeah. It used to be a small thing, and when it was a flip phone, it was just they're being mean texting. Right. Now these are things that could potentially have lifelong consequences for kids.
Absolutely. But this is the thing that's happening with our high school kids is that they're getting into these apps and then getting into chat rooms with people that are nefarious people who are looking for innocent, unsuspecting girls, a lot of young women and men and boys as well, and they get them into some kind of a writing app or some kind of gaming app, and they don't think they're just being friends with somebody and don't know that they're talking to some weird guy in Alaska, and it's not another 15-year-old girl. And this is a really difficult thing for parents to be able to know what to do with, because they've developed this whole relationship. So when parents do become aware of it, the kids are, again, this is that addicted to crack thing, is you say we're turning this off or we're shutting this down, and it's causing really mayhem in families because you've taken the crack away.
Right.
And
Right.
and you don't know what to replace it with, because
Right.
you're also taking away the friends
Yeah.
that they've developed, that they think they have.
Supposed friends.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
what
the
I mean.
key word, right?
That's what I mean. They
Supposed.
think they have this whole friendship
Yes.
going, and it's not. It's just somebody grooming them for something else.
Right.
You know,
And
it's-
that is the thing
yeah.
that we're,
Yeah.
parents are completely unaware of.
Right.
When kids are willing to do it, I've had high school kids who have listened to it and say, okay, I'll put it away and we'll see what happens. They're shocked at how much different it makes them feel.
Right.
And they're shocked at how much if, they interact with their parents more,
Yeah.
their family members more, and then all of a sudden the whole family's doing better.
Right.
Because they're playing games together, they're chatting, they're visiting with each other. And kids want to be heard, they just want to be listened to. And as a counselor, that is something big, I can tell you, especially middle school and high school kids. They just want to be listened to. And they finally feel listened to, like they're part of the family.
Right.
And that is really, really important for them. You know, that sense of belonging, they feel like they belong in their family rather than this sense of belonging with all these people who have who knows what doing who knows what.
Right.
As well as, kids doing things like, not eating, or, the current one is the whole, salt in your water to try and
Oh my
make you
gosh.
lose weight thing, which is dehydrating kids. And I mean, there's all these
Poison.
things that go
It's
out.
poisoning.
Yeah,
Your body's
it's
doing
just
that. By the way,
poison.
if anybody's listening to this,
Yeah, it's poisoning.
and the saltwater diet thing,
Right.
no. The reason
No.
why your body's doing that is because you're poisoning it, dehydrating it. Don't
Right.
do it.
Don't
It
do
can
it.
kill someone
It
with
will.
cardiac disease,
Exactly.
cardiac arrest. Yeah,
Exactly.
stay away from the salt thing.
And it's interesting when high school kids are willing to do it, and then they get their family to do it, then all
Yeah.
of a sudden they see the change that it does make. And it is
Right.
hard, it is.
Yeah.
But later on, within a week or two, they will come and say, I'm so glad I did that. I really am. Because I don't feel all of this other stuff that I was feeling all
Right.
the time. And it just really changes their outlook on so many, and then they do better in school, they do better in life, and it's just interesting to see that when they're willing to do it. And sometimes it's the kids who get the families to do it.
Right.
And I love that. And
I mean, and we know this as adults. Social media is a problem for us as adults too. Like I would be lying if I said that, it was kind of cool. Like I've caught myself like enough times checking out my friends' pictures and sitting there and I'm like, where have I been for the last 30 minutes? Like, this is so ridiculous. What am I doing? I put down this thing of phone. And if we as adults get sucked into that hole, then why are we letting our 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 25-year-olds, have access to the same stuff?
I mean, we did this the last 2 years, we implemented a no phone policy at our
It's been
schools.
the best thing we've done.
We were shocked at the difference that it's made in our kids.
Also shocked in how many students said, this is great.
Yeah.
I like this. Because I know that none of my peers have phones, therefore I'm not missing any tweets or texts or whatever.
Yeah, but it's totally changed the focus, and nobody really complained about it. I mean, there was a couple of kids that pushed back, but overall, at this point, it's not even a pushback.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I read something yesterday that at a state level, and maybe even I think a federal level, they're talking about outlawing phones in schools, full stop. Like, that's an actual conversation that's happening in legislation.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? It's all because we started it. No, just kidding. But so to recap, there's some specific things that when done right, and put limits on social media, putting limits on phones and stuff like that increase, right? I wrote some of them down. Increased physical activity, better sleep. And we're gonna I'm gonna have a whole conversation with some other people about sleep rhythms and circadian rhythms. It's so important, and it's so adversely affected by social media and screens, it's ridiculous. Better sleep, better friends, real friends like we're talking face to face. Better social awareness, less learning disabilities. I mean, I didn't even talk about the fact that they've done studies that showed that students that were on social media for 30 minutes versus students that were reading a book for 30 minutes, the student that was reading a book, using their imagination to paint pictures about what was happening, when looked at through an EEG machine, which is kind of scanning your brain, was presenting as an intelligent child that's increasing, the neural activity, blah, blah, blah. When they looked at the student who was looking at a phone and watching videos and stuff like that, their brain was presenting as a student with ADHD. And as a school psychologist and the director of our special ed program, I wonder across this country or in our school how many students have gone to a pediatrician and the pediatrician has said, yeah, you have ADHD, who would not have been diagnosed with a learning disability or a psychological disorder if they had not had phones. These phones are falsely creating diseases, effectively, a psychological disorder. It's infuriating to me.
It's causing a lack of parenting because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
become the parent. And so that, I mean, it's connected to the, you know, the ADHD thing because parents aren't as engaged
Yep.
with these kids at the, you know, once they're starting to make noise, and we find that this became the pacifier,
Right.
that parents are less engaged with their
Right.
kids. I mean, actually language and activities and stuff like that. And so when we get them starting at 5 years or 6 years, and we're wondering why this kid cannot sit still, why he's not verbal, why he can't, you know, not be the center of attention.
Right.
And it's like, okay, for the last 3 years of his life, he has
I'm the
been
center of attention when I'm
right
standing
there.
here.
And
Everyone's worrying about me.
right,
Yeah.
and trying to change that is being really difficult. And it is, like I said, parents are finding that I am finding that parents are being ill-equipped to address this because they're just assuming this is the way kids are supposed to be.
Right.
And I'm saying, no, they're not. This is not how kids are supposed to be. This
Right.
is, you know, if you took that phone away or that iPad away, and I said, what are they eating? How long are they sleeping? When did they get this iPad? I mean, well, he goes to bed with it. Oh, really? He's going to bed with an iPad. I mean, how many times have we heard that?
A lot. More
If
than
we take it away from them, they're not going to be happy. Well, okay, just get ready for that.
I will functionally define that. That is called an extinction burst,
Yeah.
and it means it's working.
Yeah.
When you look to take away something unhealthy from a student or an adult, and they really want that really bad, they will increase in their bad behavior to try to get that thing back. And then when you don't give it back again, they'll increase again. And if you give in and give that thing back because you're like, whoa, you're being really bad, then they've learned that if they just keep getting worse and worse and worse, you'll eventually give in and give you the thing. That's called an extinction burst. You know, I think we have effectively established that screens and social media and overuse, which I would define overuse as anything more than just a little bit, is pretty bad and really unhealthy and has all kinds of poor effects or mal effects on our kids. And that getting our kids off screens and spending more time with family and all the gamut of good things that come from being off screens is healthy. Debbie, you said several times that you feel like parents are ill-equipped to get from here to there. And so, I mean, I think we would be doing a disservice if we just talked about how bad it is and then how good this is without giving some tangible ideas as to how do you get from here to there? Because you're right. Like if you take something away that someone is addicted to, they're going to have a burst of emotion and possibly even like sad feelings, which could be defined as depression if it lasted too long. We could have, kids having extinction bursts. How do we get through that? And how do we find replacement behaviors? Because there's one thing that I've learned in my years with kids is that you cannot change a bad behavior without providing a replacement behavior that's just as desirable. So, Stacey, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts and ideas on helping students get from bad to good? Like, how do we get there?
I think spending time together and listening, like we were just talking about, it's surprising. Hey, let's just go get, ice cream, or let's go shopping, or let's go to the park or go to the beach together. And it's amazing how those kinds of things really, kids actually, once you make them go, they're like, fine, I'll go. And then they end up loving it. Because you just have everything distraction free.
Right.
And again, they want that time, but they want that time for them, not for their families to be on their phones or getting calls from work or this or that. So I think that is one thing that definitely helps. I also think that, as a parent, you get to control that. I don't think little kids should have access to phones.
Yep.
And teenagers, if you're going to give them to them, definitely, it should be limited. You should be checking, the computers, their phones, everything for their history.
Yeah.
Go check their histories because it might be shocking how much there is there.
Yeah.
Put it also, you can put the apps on it that monitor things. I know some families who have those apps where they get every phone number that contacts their kid. They get every message that, they can check their search history and everything. And what the kids have told me who have that, I said, at first, I was kind of upset that my parents were doing that. I felt like they weren't trusting me. But then I realized it was a great thing to be able to tell my friends, oh, you can't, don't send me that.
Yeah.
Or, don't, because my family checks everything and they see everything that's sent to me.
Right.
So they get to a way out of it, and it gives a good thing an out to get away from all that kind of stuff, the drama or the gossip or the things going on. And as a parent, I know I've said that several times when my son was growing up. Just blame me. Just totally blame me. Not a problem.
Yeah, I can't do that. My mom said I can't.
Exactly.
That's
My
easier to
mom's
say
like,
than I don't want to because I can't because I'm so holier than that. I mean, that's hard for a kid to say.
Exactly. No, and those apps are out there, and so you can just
so real
do
quick
it.
On those apps, you don't. Sometimes you don't even need a special app.
Right.
So what I know is, and I think it might be the same family because friends of mine as well, is that they're on iPhones, right?
Yes.
You have an Apple ID,
right?
And you have you say you give your 17-year-old, they have an Apple phone, an Apple device. You sign them in with an Apple ID that you create, and then you have an iPad,
right,
in the home that you sign in with the same Apple ID. Yeah. Now every text message that goes to this phone goes to this iPad.
Yeah.
So mom and dad can see the text messages. Every app that's downloaded on this phone gets downloaded on that iPad. So you make sure that you have the usernames and passwords for every social media account. If they have an Instagram, if they have a Facebook, whatever, make sure you have the passwords to all those things so you can access those same exact deals.
Exactly.
You'll be able to see everything they're doing effectively. And then if you want to grab their phone and then scroll through their web search history and stuff like that, make sure that they're being transparent. I mean, that is the starting point. Like if we as parents aren't doing that, then I mean, good grief, we should not be handing our kids any devices. The first thing you do, know what's on the phone.
Exactly. You want to see their photos. You want to see what they're screenshotting on their phones.
Yep.
All those kinds of things.
I mean, to start with, I think the beginning part of it, there are phones you get that are called a gab phone, and all it does is receive phone calls.
There you go.
Mean, from you. I mean, you can limit the phone numbers, and if you think your kid has to have a phone, and they're in the 5th, 6th, or 7th grade, whatever that is, this is just called a gab phone. It's the phone, what a phone used to do. And it was attached to the wall. It just, you called it and it, that was it. It just was a phone. And I think that, that's what, some of our parents say, well, they need a phone for safety. And I was like, at school, we have a phone in every room. There's no problem. But if they're in places where you really feel like they need some kind of phone like that, a gab phone is a perfect solution to that. I think the other side of that too is, it's important for parents to find other parents that feel the same way as they do.
Yeah.
Because what I've heard, from lots of parents is like everybody's doing it. If my kid doesn't have them, they're the one that's out. And I said, find new friends.
Yeah.
And so it's important for our parents to know that if you have certain values for your kids and you want them to live their life a certain way, then you need to help them find their friends.
Correct.
And you need to associate with people that feel the same way about it, because social media is one of those things. Phones are one of those things. If parents are letting phones be the thing that's raising their kids, and there are some that are doing that and haven't quite, even though they may realize it's damaging, they're working 2 jobs. Life is so busy, they just aren't paying attention to it, and they don't really have the wherewithal to do it.
Right.
Those children can't help but be impacted by that. If your kids are spending time with those kids, they're going to be impacted by it too. And so parents have got to be selective about who my kids' friends are and know who my kids' friends are, and then find other parents that feel the same way. There are organizations, one's called Osprey. And it's a group of parents that have, kind of made a club kind of a thing where they all are committed to the fact that they want their kids to grow up in an old-fashioned way, without access to social media 24/7. And they kind of help each other, hold each other accountable, provide things for their kids to do. When you're not used to that, if you're a person who's not used to, a parent who just came up with this, a young parent, and that's been the way that you grew up, then you're not even understanding. When I sit down with parents, I was like, the city has this whole Parks and Rec program They have after-school programs that your kids can go in. They're very inexpensive. You can take them. They can learn to play baseball or football or basketball. They can learn to dance. They can learn to do gymnastics. I mean, there's all these programs out there that kids can be very active doing exercise.
Making friends.
And not hooked into social media.
Yeah.
And a lot of our families just are unaware because they think all of that costs a lot of money. It all doesn't.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is if it costs a lot of money, then you just be the mom that starts your own thing.
Right.
I mean, how many times did I do that? I just was the mom that started the thing because
Park day.
I wanted my kids to have a certain kind of friends, and so I just started Park Day, you know, and those are the people that I became a mom with. And so that's what I think, you know, parents need to be empowered to know that, you know, you have the right that you're choosing where your child's going to school. You're making that choice about where they're going to school. You also make a choice about who their friends are. You decide where you're going to go to church or where you're going to, you know, who's your community. You also are going to decide, you know, what kind of things we're going to do as a family. And that then takes you down a different road.
Yeah.
But you have to be intentional about it. And I think the hard thing with lots of families is they're having a hard time doing that because they're just trying to survive.
I agree.
And it's not an excuse, but it is a problem to recognize is real.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that Stacey kind of alluded to was, so I mentioned replacement behavior, right? And also you mentioned that often students just want to be heard or they want to be visible, right? And that's what social media gives them in a way. Often the first thing that we have to do as parents, and I have to do as a dad, is look in the mirror first.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And so if my daughter was to be overly obsessed with social media and getting approval on social media, I would need to have a very hard look in the mirror to say how I played into that. And what that would say to me is, my daughter may not be getting enough of me, therefore she's turning to something else. And I think that's the first truth that parents have to recognize. If your kid is on social media and screens all the time, what they're not getting when they're on that is you. Step one, replace the screen time with you. That is so important. And they might like, oh, mom's not cool, dad's not cool. That's a lie. They need you, right? I mean, we all know that. We all know that because we talk to the kids on a daily basis and we hear what they really say. They need more of their parents, and that's the truth. Step two, know everything that's on your kid's phone. Everything. Figure out how to have the same IDs, put an app, whatever. Know what's on that phone. Step three, start getting your family doing stuff. Start getting your kids doing stuff. Hopefully outside. In the evenings, board games. It is shocking how much kids love board games. Monopoly. I mean, just go down the list. It's hilarious to me how my 7-year-old, how many times a week she'll bring me Uno or Monopoly or Candyland she loves board games. And I will tell you that she's young, but this plays out all the way into the teen years because I've seen teenagers have a board game club at a high school where they'll spend hours a week playing board games at a school. Just play board games in your house. It's that easy. They're cheap. You can buy them at the 99-cent store. Right? So do stuff together with a family. Get your kids playing with each other. Create a thing. Get a group of families, group of friends that are your friends, our friends, and then get our kids to play together. You might not like each other at first. They'll individually like each other. I also think we're in a situation I don't think it's quite the silent majority yet, but I think we're in a silent majority situation where everybody thinks everybody else is doing it. But the reality is, everybody else wants out too. We're all in prison. We're in prison by these things because companies have spent billions of dollars to create an addictive device that puts us in prison. Everybody wants out of prison. So start getting out of prison. And then telling everybody else that you're doing it. All of a sudden, you won't be the minority. Parents won't be the minority. The kids won't be the minority. They will be actually in the majority because they'll realize, freedom is better. Being in prison to this dumb device that I hold in my hand is terrible. And it's unhealthy. And the opposite side of it is healthy, strong, successful. You become a leader. You learn social skills. The benefits go on and on and on. So
I think the big part of it is we just need to know parents, that we can empower parents to be the parents in their kids' lives.
Absolutely.
Let them get their childhood back.
Absolutely.
Let us together, those in the schools and you and the parents, protect their innocence. And it starts when parents say, I'm going to be in charge,
Yeah.
not let that phone or social media be in
Just
charge.
the school can only do so much. We're
Right.
just the school. The
Right.
school exists to be a support of the family. And the parents are the parents of these kids.
Right.
We want to help you understand, or the parent understand, that their authority in their kid's life is greater than our authority in their life. And some parents...
And that's really antithetical to the culture in which we live, especially in the state of California. If you
True.
just looked at the latest legislation that's come down,
Here we
very
go.
anti-parent.
It is.
And so
It's
for us
terrible.
to say, parents, you are the parents of these children.
Yeah.
You are empowered to be their mentors. You have the right to speak into their lives. That's something they're going to have to fight for.
And on that note, thank you ladies very much. This has been an amazing conversation, and I hope that it sparks some fires in some minds, and frees some kids from prison.
Me too.